I'm ready to put on military uniform and go out and fight side by side with you, he told a conference in Cairo this month commemorating soldiers killed in conflict. To his critics, the 63-year-old former intelligence general has led Egypt deeper into authoritarianism than even former President Hosni Mubarak, who was toppled in 2011 after ruling for 3 decades under a state of emergency. Rights groups say Sisi has muzzled political opponents, activists, and critical media, while courts have passed death sentences on hundreds of supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood since he deposed the Brotherhood's president, Mohammed Mursi, after mass protests in 2013. Tough economic reforms, backed by the IMF, have halved the value of the pound and hit millions of poor Egyptians. Sisi's supporters say the measures are needed to keep the country stable as it recovers from political chaos and tackles grave economic challenges and the Islamist insurgency. Ahead of this week's election, in which no credible challenger has been able to stand, Sisi warned last month that anyone who threatened Egypt's stability would be dealt with harshly. "I will die before anyone messes with its security," he said, adding that the 2011 uprising, when the army stood by while Mubarak was forced out, would not be repeated. "I'm not a politician who just talks." Military rulers. Sisi is the latest in a line of Egyptian rulers drawn from the military that was only briefly broken by Mursi, who lasted a year before Sisi overthrew him. Promising to work for security, stability and development after 3 years of turmoil, Sisi sought to project a new dynamism when he took office, holding cabinet meetings at 7 a.m. and joining a cycle race on his first weekend as president. The message was clear. The sclerotic, 30-year rule of former President Mubarak and the turbulence of Mursi's brief presidency were over. The new president would get things done. In another break with the Mubarak presidency, Sisi has kept his wife and 4 children out of the spotlight to avoid suggestions he may have ambitions to build a political dynasty. He has promised to abide by a 2-term constitutional limit for serving presidents, a pledge which if honored would be a first in Egypt's modern history. His 5 predecessors were either pushed out, died in office, or were assassinated. "Building the state takes 16 to 20 years, I am trying to finish it in 8 years, God willing," Sisi said in November. Sisi's goal. Born on November 19, 1954, Sisi showed signs of unusual discipline as a young boy, people in his old neighborhood in Cairo said. While other boys played football or smoked, Sisi and his friends lifted weights made of metal pipes and rocks. Neighbors say he came from a tightly knit religious family. A cousin, Fathi al-Sisi, who runs a handicraft shop, said the future field marshal had memorized the Quran. His father encouraged him to work in his shop every day after school. "I lived for 10 years with nothing in the fridge except water, and I am from a wealthy family," he told a youth conference in Sharm el-Sheikh 2 years ago. That remark was one of several which Sisi's critics have mocked. His call for people to donate £1 a day to a development fund via their mobile phones, or a suggestion that banks divert loose change from transactions to the fund, were widely ridiculed. Sisi kept a low profile as Mubarak's head of military intelligence, and became the youngest member of the military council that ruled Egypt for 18 months after Mubarak resigned in February 2011. Lacking the flamboyance or rhetorical skills of former presidents Gamal Abdel Nasser and Anwar Sadat, Sisi projects a calm and softly spoken persona and speaks only occasionally in public. But pictures of Sisi are ubiquitous across Egypt, and he has not publicly sought to limit the torrents of praise for him in state media. In an unpublished segment of an interview with Al-Masri Al-Yawm Daily that was leaked in an audio online ahead of his first term, he spoke of a vision that suggested he was destined to be a great leader. "In a dream I had 35 years ago, I was raising a sword with the phrase 'There is no God but God' written on it in red," he said. In another dream he met Sadat and told him, "I know that I will be president."